We'll start on Kuf Yud Aleph Amud Beis, and before we start, I just want to correct something. I realized afterward last night that I said something wrong. That I said that in the Mishnah said U'tzrichem Beis Eidim V'Asrar L'Chalechad V'Echad. Actually, I think before that I said that by Irani Dachas, I said they all get killed. It's not all of them get killed. Only the ones who said did Avodah Zarah get killed. The ones who didn't do Avodah Zarah, they still lose all their possessions, but they don't get killed.
Is it the whole city?
The whole city gets killed if they did Avodah Zarah. But if they didn't do if a person, let's say 99% of them did Avodah Zarah and 10 people didn't do Avodah Zarah, those 10 people don't get killed. However, they still will get their chasim destroyed, and get burned because that's what the Gemara said, that they put themselves in the wrong position. They put themselves in a city with people who are Avodah Zarah. So
So I saw with Mount Rebbe that a guy wrote a letter and said, I have a big neighbor. I want to move because it's So mainly, he wants to know if I should move or not. I never told him, but it also says that what is
Tevla Tzadik, Tevla Shchenei?
You become a tzaddik and it'll be good for him.
Ah, very nice. Okay. Okay. So now we're up to the Gemara over here. It's 5 lines, by the two lines down in the wide lines, that's the Gemara. Gemara is going to talk about the Mishnah. Tan Rabbanan, the Rabbanan learned. Yatsu hein v'lo shluchen. Pasuk says, Kuf Yud Aleph Amud Beis on the bottom. Kuf Yud Aleph Amud Beis on the bottom. Tan Rabbanan. Second wide line. Gemara. Tan Rabbanan. Right, I think we finished the Mishnah yesterday, I think, right? Yeah. Okay. Tan Rabbanan. Yatsu, the Pasuk says, Yatsu anashim bnei Belial b'kirbecha. People, sons of Belial, people without an oil, came from amongst you. They and they convinced, they turned away the people of their city. Lamer saying, let's go and serve other gods of others that you did not know. That's a pasuk. So the Gemara is going to dash in the pasuk. Yatsu, hein, they themselves, v'lo shluchen, the madichim themselves, and not the madichim shluchen. Anashim. It says Anashim is Lashon Rabim. Zak the Gemara, in Anashim pachs mi beis. You have to have at least 2 madichim. If you have 1 madiach, that's not in your anidachas. Davar I heard different shat. Anashim v'lo Anashim, it means not Nashim. Anashim v'lo Ketanim. So the Anashim, not the not the what do you call? They can't be madichim. Bnei Belial. What does Bnei Belial mean? Banim. People, children, Shaparku El Shemaim Tzavreim, children of Hashem who went and they threw off the yoke of Shemayim from their necks. And it says Mikir Becha, so Bnei Belial came Mikir Becha, V'loy min asfar. It has to be in the middle, not from the port. If you remember, we had way back, I think in the first parak, in the last part of the Mishnah, in the first parak, it said that Irni Dachas cannot be by the port, and it's Xeris Akasav, because the Rebbeinu Shalom didn't want to leave Eretz Yisrael to have a border city that's uninhabited, because that won't be safe for the people inside the city. So that's the pasuk says, Mikar Becha has to be from amongst you. The city has to be in middle of Eretz Yisrael, not on the edge of Eretz Yisrael, not the port or boundary of Eretz Yisrael. Then it says Yoshrei Iram, the dwellers of their city. Yeah.
Not the how does it different city?
It says, right? So and not that they're madiach another city. In other words, the people who are madiach are being madiach their own city, not that they came from a different city to this city. Right? And also and lamer to say that you need Hasra for each one. How do we learn that out? I forgot how we learned that out. I forgot how we learned it out. I don't know.
I think we learned fakert.
What?
They don't need Hasra.
So the Mishnah says they do need Hasra, and the Gemara is going to talk about this. This nafkamina between whether they're Yachid or Rabbin.
What? What was the Yachid?
Well, here it is. Okay, look in this Rashi. Lemer Neilcha V'Navda. It's on the inside column, and we actually didn't see the Gemara on this, but let's just peek out on this. They have to say in front of us, this is what the people said. The people said, let's go and serve Avodah Zarah. So you see, you need Eidim for each one to say what the people said. So you need Hasra for each one. Al Kapanim, from you do need Eidim and you do need Hasra, and the Gemara is going to talk about later what's the Hasra for. Because what happens? You have a city. It's got, I don't know, let's say 200 people. This Gemara, we're going to be a machlekes in the Gemara later how big a city is. But let's say, for argument's sake, 200 people, right? So one person did Avodah Zarah. Is it Dachas yet? No. What does the guy get? The guy gets skila. Kill him. How many people left in the city? 199. Someone else did Avodah Zarah. Let's kill him. 198. Right? When do you decide that, and you give him skila, right? This is yachid, right? When do you decide, it became an Irani Dachas, and if it's an Irani Dachas, then you have to go back and burn all those guys' stuff, right? Or what's the mahalach? So the Gemara is going to talk about this. It's today's daf from Mitzvah. Okay, Zaktim Marvaita. Imar we learned. Rabbi Yechon said, Cholkin irachas l'shnei shvatim. You can split one city into two shvatim. In other words, when Yeshua split Eretz Yisrael, all the way at the beginning, when the Klal Yisrael came in, there was okay to go and give a city. Let's say there was a city. Let's say, I don't know, Yehuda was here and Dan was here. Let's say, and there was a city. Yehuda and Yamin. I don't want to use this as an example because they had Yerushalayim. Right, right. That was different. Right, that was specific to be there in the middle. Let's say it was Yehuda and Dan, right? And there's a city that happens to be on the border, and part of it is on Yehuda's side, and part of it is on Dan's side. So Rabbi Yechon says that's okay. That city could be taka half Yehuda and half Dan.
So the city was I thought Yeshua was a clear cut like the states, you know.
If you have a boundary, right? The Torah says v'nasav gvul from here to here, right? And the punct goes through a city. That gvul that the Torah gave goes through a city, right?
I thought they would have divided it equally, like the boundary of the city.
That's right. I don't know. I can't tell you for sure, but it's certainly possible. And it's actually not easy to make straight borders. That's why most of the states are not straight borders. It goes along a river, or it goes along the canyon, or something like that. Most borders are not clear cut. So Rabbi Yechon says it was okay. You could go and split the city to two shvatim if it happened that way, and that's what Rabbi Yechon holds. He holds you cannot. What you do is that, let's say it's part in Yehuda and part in Binyamin, or part in Yehuda and part in Dan, and whichever has more, then it becomes his city. So if, let's say, it was 51% in Dan and 49% in Yehuda, then that city belongs to Shevet Dan. It's in Shevet Dan's Chelek. So Zak the Gemara. Esvei, I'll ask you a kasha. According to Reish Lakish, what's Pshat in Yerushalayim, though? Right? You started asking me about Yerushalayim. So there's a Gillion on the side from Taisis Yishanim that says that was Al Pi HaDibra. That was special Xeris HaKasa. The Baruch Shalom said that Yerushalayim should be split. But Reish Lakish is talking about everything but Yerushalayim. Esvei Rabbi Yechon Reish Lakish. So Rabbi Yechon asked the Kasha to Reish Lakish from our Sugya. It says in our Mishnah, that the Madichim have to be from the same city and the same Shevet as the people that they are being madiach. My love, avagav the madichim yeseir. Even though the madichim are from that city, still you have to have another condition. If they have from that shevet, yes, and if they're from a different shevet, they're not. You see, you could have one city and two. In other words, he's asking like this. If it has to say two separate conditions, one is they're from that city, and two is they're from that shevet, it means it's possible that they could be from that city and not be from that shevet. How could you have people in the city not from that shevet? Right. It only must be that you could split a city between two shvatim. That's his kasha and Rish Lakish. Where it says, no, it's not. The Rish Lakish would answer like this. Somebody gave somebody from a different shevet, his mother, let's say, married someone from that shevet, right? And then his mother died, and he yarshened his mother, and then he became his mother yarshened because she was an only daughter, right? So she yarshened out of her shevet. Right, and now he's there, but he's not the shevet that the rest of the people are from. Inami, or even a simpler case, someone gave him something in a matana. He's from Shevet Dan, and somebody from Yehuda gave him a piece of land in this city, and then he decided to become a missionary.
Was he allowed to do that? I don't know.
Yeah. Depends on the city. Sometimes it goes back, sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, he's allowed to do that, and certainly for the purposes of Yonidachas, we say that after 30 days, it's considered that he lives in that city. We learned that we ask Kasha. Aram Teisha Meis. Aram Teisha. This is a pasuk. It's a pasuk in Yeshua about the whose cities went to. It says Aram Teisha Meish Shvat Meila. 9 cities from these 2 shvatim. My love. If it says 9 cities from 2 shvatim, my love, Arbo Palgamehai, Arbo Palgamehai, 4.5 from this shevet, 4.5 from the other shevet, and you see that Rabbi Yechanan is right. You could split a city between 2 shvatim. The Gemara says no. Arba Mehai v'Chamishmai, it was 4 and 5 or 5 and 4. It wasn't half and half. Ihachi Lifresh Prushi. So if the Gemara says if so, let the pasuk have explained that it's 4 and 5 instead of 4.5 and 4 and 4.5. It was kasha. Yeah, it's a kasha, but it's not a shloga. That's the shaila. Let's say they went and they convinced themselves to do avodah zarah. So it didn't have people coming and convincing them. They convinced themselves. Do you say that someone has to be madiachim, not that they were hudach by themselves? Even if they're hudach from themselves. Where it says Tashma bring a raya, if women or ktanim were madiach, then we said that it's not it's like yichidim. It's not considered Aaron Dachas. If you say that hutchumei alehen is going to be considered something, this is no worse than that. Right.
Because how don't work, but why? So they went to
pretend they weren't here, right? Pretend the ghost was speaking to them, right? Which is what happens if a person themselves convinces himself. And for the Gemara, Hanach basar nafshayu grady, Hani basar nashim ktanim grady. So the Gemara says there's a difference that when a person convinces himself, so he's going to be schlepped after his own thoughts and how he became convinced that he's avodah zarah, that avodah zarah is right. But if it was hudchu by mashim ktanim, right, then he's not going to be pulled after it. So even though we say that for mashim ktanim is not Iranidachas, maybe if you're nidcha by yourself, nidach by yourself, that's still considered Iranidachas. Like I know people in Nebuch went off the derech, and they're very convinced that they're right? And that's without anyone convincing them. They convince themselves. So that's the Gemara. That's why the Gemara has a havamina, and the Gemara is not paishet. What the shaila is, the hutchumei alein should still be considered Iranidachas, even though Noshim and Ktanim is not considered Iranidachas. Okay, the Gemara continued. The Mishnah continued. You have to have majority. So this is the complete. I started telling you before. How do you figure out a majority? In fact, the Gemara, how do you do this? How do you do this to make that you have a roiv? Since you need Eidim and Asra for each one, Rashi explains. The Gemara says, Amar Yehuda. Yehuda says, done in v'chayvshin. You judge the people. You judge this person and that person and that person. Each time you judge someone and you come out that he's guilty, you put him in jail. Excuse me. You don't put him to death yet. You give him a psak of skila, but you don't put him to death. You put him in jail, and you see that until you see, do you have right of the city? Amle Ula said to Rav Yehuda, Nimtza atam ma'ana es din and shalelu. You bring ma'ana the din, you're delaying their judgment. We said that once there's a psak for Misa, you have to kill the person right away. You're not letting ma'ana the din. Elam Ula done of cycling. Ula says no. You judge and you give skila right away. You judge and you give skila right away. And then once you hit the half, then ispar hovra davar l'mafreya that their taka it's right of the city, and that you have Aaron Adachas over here, and their money will get lost. And now Mafreya, those people get lost, and you can't kill them again. But here on in, you give the people a saif and sereg instead of
destroyed until
right.
You get it right.
Right. Reish Lakish says, Reish Lakish Marban Lam Batidinin. Reish Lakish says, no, you have a bunch of Batidinim. You have a whole bunch of Dina Torah that need to happen very quickly. So you go bring from all around the surrounding cities, you bring all to me the Chacham, and you make a bunch of Batidinim, and now you could try all these people in Bezdin all on the same day. In fact, the Gemara, it's not so. Rav Chama Bar Yasi Amar Baishya, Rav Chama Bar Yasi said name Rav Baishya. The pasuk says, you take out that man or that woman, and it says that he did this bad thing, el sharecha, and you give skatam avanu mesu. So it says, you take out a man and a woman, in other words, you take sharecha. You don't take a whole city to l'sharecha. Rav Chama Yisrael Rabbi is learning that if you have an irni dachas, you don't take them to the local bezdin of 23. You have to take them to Yerushalayim to the bezdin of 71. Right? That's what it says. You take an ishvi isha yichidim l'sharecha to your local bezdin, but you don't take a full city to the bezdin. So now you're saying, Reish Lakish is saying, you bring a whole bunch of batidinim over here, right? And then you're doing that. It's not so. You should have bring them to the Sanhedrin. What you happen is that you have a bunch of batidinin, and you look in their din, and whether or not they're hudach. And then, if the taka turns out that there's going to be a roiv, maskin l'hu lebesdin agadol, you take them to the besdin agadol. V'gamri l'hu dinai, when the besdin agadol is gomer the din, v'kalalu, and then they kill them. That's how you do it. Zok the marvaiter. Haki sak.
It's not a day job.
No, it's not that many people necessarily, but
it's a small city. No,
I think the Gemara tomorrow's daf is going to talk about how many people it is. Yeah. Right.
Not going to work.
Right. You should hit the people of that city. The pasuk says that teaches us that Yeshvi here is only the people who sit there who are dwellers of the city. What does that mean? And we said that somebody who's going through a camel or a caravan or a donkey caravan, they're going through a salesman. If they're there for 30 days, they're considered Yeshvi Irahu. Zakti Umar, Tan Rabban Rabban learned Hachameres v'Gamelas Haiveres Makam Makam. Camel drivers and donkey drivers that are going from place to place. Lanu b'Seicha, if they slept in that city, and they were convinced to do the Avodah Zarah themselves. If they were there for 30 days, they get saif and their money gets lost. If they're less than 30 days, they get skila like yechidim, even if the rest of the city is going to get saif. And their money gets escaped because they're not from the Erni Dachas. You're telling me 30 days? How long do you have to be in a city to be considered like Anshe Ir? And this is a Gemara in Bava Metzia, I think it is. And Gemara talks about Bava Basra. Thank you. Gemara talks about that where your chiyuv is to start giving in the local tzedakahs. Or the local taxes. It says over there in Bava Basra, Yud Beis Chodesh, 12 months. How could over here you could say that's 30 days, and there you say it's 12 months. And for the Gemara, Rav Lekash, it's not fair. One place is when they're from the Bnei Masa. The Bnei Masa is people who are people from the city. Right. They always
live there.
That's after 12 months. But when they're just dwellers in the city, that's 30 days. In fact, the Gemara Actually, no, this is not correct. This is Vatanya b'Nechusa. The Gemara is bringing a raya. Vatanya, we learned in a braysa. Somebody says, I'm not having kainam alai. I'm answering myself everything if I have enough from people from this city, right? And my shprach is b'nei ha'ir. If you have somebody in that city from 12 months or longer, then asur l'hanis menu. He's not allowed to have enough from it. Pachas mikan, less than 12 months, mutter l'hanis menu. Then he's mutter to have anah. But if let's say his nether was, I'm not going to have anah miyoshvei ha'ir. If the person that he wants to have enough from is there for 30 days, asur l'hanis menu. Pachas mikan, less than 30 days, mutter l'hanis menu is allowed to have anah. So that's the that's the difference between a yoshev ha'ir and a ben ha'ir.
Right, guy was passing through, a guy that
right.
He was born there, he's very there.
Right. So the Mishnah said, quoted the pasuk, destroy it and everything that's in it. Now we have to know what's the in it. You destroy it. The aleph, the Goin takes out the words Haskal Shabbat, which the Gemara is going to bring that in a second. So it excludes the nechasim of the tzaddikim, the people who did not serve the Avodah Zarah, that are not in the city. That's kol asher ba, and then the pasuk continues, and everything that's in it, l'rabes nichset tzaddikim shabataycha. That's to say that the nichset tzaddikim that are in it, even though they're tzaddikim, their nechasim is also going to get destroyed. Then it says, the pasuk says, the eskol shlala tikvates, and all its loot you should gather. So shlala, it's good. We can learn from shlala, but
a tzaddik living in a city with all the there, and he still stays there. He doesn't leave.
Yeah. We saw this yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah, but why should he leave? What are you doing over there? You know, you're living in a Catholic city. You know, you're all Jewish guy. You move out. You know.
Yeah. Okay. So the Gemara says shlala. The pasuk says shlala. You should gather shlala v'lo shlal shamayim. Not the shlal shamayim, not the things that belong to the Rebbe. The Gemara is going to talk about what that is. That's called shlala, and it says v'es kol shlala rabes texur sham shechutzala. The kol is marbed, even the nechasim that belong to the people in the city who did avodah zarah, even though those nechasim are out of the city. So if somebody has a car parked in a garage next to the over, and he served avodah zarah with their nidachas, that car is also going to get destroyed.
All possessions, that's right.
Oh, this is the piece. So maybe we didn't say it yesterday. In my head, I said it yesterday. But it's right over here. How come the tzaddikim who live there, right, they're the chasim that are in the city get destroyed? Why did they live amongst these people? Because of their money. They wanted to live in a nice neighborhood. That's why their mama gets lost. Right, that's the reason.
They're not pure tzaddikim.
Yeah.
Inner motive.
Yeah. We learned. This is being married by the nechasim of the Rishonim that are out of the city. Amar Chizr says, and when it is gathered into the city, this means that they're within. Rashi says two pshatim over here. One is that they're close enough that you can gather them in on that day, so they're not really, really far away. But if they're further away than a day's travel, then you don't knock it off.
Two men can't wash themselves with that. We need three.
Right. And then Rashi also says only. This is another lashon. Another lashon in Rashi. Rashi says that Nikvatz Masech means that it was there in the city, then it went out of the city at some point, and now the city became Inor Nidachas. That still has shaykhs to the city, and it comes back and gets destroyed. But not if, let's say, somebody is a Russia, he lived in Inor Nidachas, and now his great-great-granduncle was Nifter 500 miles away. And now he just became a Yerush. He's the only Yerush. He became a Yerush. He owns a karka, or he owns a car, or something that's 500 miles away. That was never in the city. So then Rav Chisda is saying that's not included in this because it was never part of the city to start with, and therefore that moment won't get destroyed.
He wasn't an owner of Bashas.
Even if he was an owner, according to this Lashon and Rashi, even if he was a owner, but this never was here, right? A person called up a dealership in 500 miles away and said, I want to buy a car, here's my credit card, right? But that car never made it to the city before it became an Yerin Dachas, then it doesn't get destroyed.
It's free.
Right. Amr Rav Chizda says, the pikadain, something that was entrusted to somebody else, but we don't know who entrusted and who was entrusted yet. That is mutter, that will not get destroyed. What's the case? If you say that it belongs to somebody from a different city, and it was in the city, Shita, that's pashut. Even though it's in the city, it's pashut to mutar and it's mutter. Lav shlomu, it's not its shalom. Must be the other way around. It belongs to the people in their Nidachas, and they were mafkided outside in a different city. If it's the Kvatzin L'Seicha, whichever pshat you're going to say, like Rav Chizda said, either it's within a day or it started off in here and then it went to the other city, then Amay Mutar, why is it mutter? And if it's not gathered in, then the taco will be mutter. But he already said it one time because it's not in the kvatzin. Where it says no. A taka belongs to people in the other city, and they were mafkided in the people in the Arnidachas, the city people. What's the case? When the Kabbalah Leachrayas, the Shomer here in the Shomer in the Arnidachas, he was Kabbalah Achrayas on it. Yeah, like a Shomer Sachar. Right now, the Kabbalah. What? More than a Shomer Chinam, right? Because Shomer Chinam is going to be pattering Nevi Aveda, right? So now he was Meshabed himself to have a chrayas for this thing. Now,
you need to pay.
If something happens to it, I'll make it right. So the Havamim will be keeping the Kabbalah chrayas kidei. It's like his because he has like an ownership stake in it. Because if it gets destroyed, he's going to have to pay. Kamash Malan, that's not considered that he owns it, and it's still going to be mutter. It won't get destroyed with the Ernidachas. Amr Rav Chizda said, Behema chetz shlir Ernidachas v'chetz shlir acheres asura. A behema that is part of, let's say, one of the owners lives near Ernidachas, and the other owner is not, the regular Jew living somewhere else. So the Gemara says it's going to be asura. Why? Because you cannot take an animal and take.
It's like two different shvatim.
Yeah, so why is this different? It's a good question you're asking. Why would this be different? So the Gemara is explaining, Rashi explains, I should say, that you cannot have the cloud, you cannot have a kizayis basar below shchita. You can't get even a little tiny bit of meat from this animal without shechting the whole thing. So now you want to take the chelak that belongs to your nidachas and sort of separate that out? Sure, very good. Go separate that out. But now the animal's dead, right? Right? So you affected the whole animal by that. So because of that, if it's good, the whole behemoth will be asr. So the whole behemoth is considered irin and dachas behemoth. Isa, but let's say a doe, right? So you have a doe, and half belongs to the irin and dachas person, and half belongs to a not irin and dachas person. Chetzish irin and dachas, chetzish lir acheres, muteres will be mutter, the part that is not in the irin and dachas. My time, behemoth kwandlei pligodamya. The behemoth is as if something that you cannot split. But Isa, command the pligadamya.
How do you break it up? You have Isa. How do you divide it?
Probably yesh breira, and you just cut it in half. Yeah. Command the pligadamya. That is like it's. Cut in half. It's like it's split. By Rav Chizda says Shaila, behemoth here in idachas ma'oget tisani ba shchita l'taram de nevela. Rav Chizda has a very interesting question. The halacha is that irin idachas you're not allowed enough from the stuff, right? Right? And let's say you have to take the animal. That says pasuk says v'spehemta l'ficharesh. Take a sword and you kill the animal. You don't go and you don't go and shecht it. Right, because shechting won't be materit. If you shecht it, the shechita is not materit because it already is considered asr bana without the shechita. Right, so you can't do anything with it. So now the question of Chizda asks, how about will the shechita, if you do a shechita, will that help to say this animal is not a nevela? Right, nevela has certain halachas, tamei, etc., etc. Right, so will this animal that was shechted, yeah, you can't have enough of it, but it's not going to be a nevela. Do you say that or not? Right? Because
What's
maybe
it have to mean? It's killed
you
anyway.
gotta be tumma. You gotta be tumma and tarif. Yeah. So because if you shecht an animal, then it's not an avela. But if your animal's roadkill, right, then it's an avela. So now the question is, if you shecht this irani dachas animal, maybe it's like roadkill. Maybe the shechita is not even chal for to be a shechita, because you cannot do a kosher shechita on this by definition, because it's asr ba'ana.
You're killing a dead person.
Yeah, exactly. So the Gemara says, do you say lefi cherav amrachmana? You go by the pasuk says you kill it lefi cherav. Loishna shachta mishchat loishna ktal miktal. Whether you shechted it or you just killed it, and
You can't use the meat.
And you can't use it because the shechita is not considered a shechita. Maybe once you shechted it, the shechita will help. What's the halacha? Where it says take.
The shechita help that it's not considered.
The shechita won't help to be matter it to eat, but shechita will help that it's not considered an avela.
Why is it the behem becomes like a lavrasa?
Right, the behem is an avrasa. That's clear. Right. The question is that is never an usher that also is a tumah. There's no tumah that's nigzar on it because of your nidachas. Right. That's a separate set of halachas. So now, is it considered if you shechted it? Is it considered? Yeah, it's still asur ba'ana. I can't go and feed it to my dogs now, but it's still afal pikein. Even though I can't do that, it's not going to be tamei because it was nishchat. Or no. Or do you say no that shechita doesn't help something that's asur ba'ana? Zaktamar weiter. Amar Rav Chisda said, "Vehima." I'm sorry, I went back. I went back. Boyer of Yosef. Rav Yosef, that's a shayla. Seir nashim tzidkanias mahu. The here of nashim tzidkanias. So this is not talking about tznias covered with tichel or anything like that. We're asking about the here of nashim tzidkanias. Is that considered asr and nirani dachas? So nashim tzidkanias, she was going to lose all her possessions. Right?
A lady.
She didn't do Avodah Zarah, but all her stuff, she lived in Iradachas, all her stuff is going to get destroyed, right?
Right.
So what about her here? In fact, the Gemara, Amarava, what?
What's the shayla?
Gemara's going to explain in a second. Amarava, Hadr Shiyais Aser. You're telling me that the diuk is that your only shayla is by tzedkanis, tzadekas. But a rasha, her here will be aser. Tikvus usraftiksev, mishen mechusra el kvitzu usreifa. Yotzezesh mechusra tlisho kvitzu usreifa. You have to burn the things that you only need to gather and burn. But something they have to gather and remove, or remove and then gather and burn, that's not considered part of the isser. Elam Rava, so Rava says no. That's not that's not the shayla we're talking about. The shayla is b'fei anachros, the sheita. Hechidami. What's the case? What's the case? The case is either mechaber begufa kigufa dami. If it's tied on to her, it's like her guf. What does it mean? It's like her guf. It means like her clothing.
Not sewn in.
Right. No, but it's tied on. It's attached. Right. It could be attached to her own here. Right. So it's kugufa dami. Kugufa dami just means it's her body. Literally, it means it's like her clothing, right? That she's wearing. She's not a person near dachas who's not getting killed does not have to take off his clothing and leave it there on the fire. He's allowed to walk out with his clothing on. So Gemara says, "Lo, no, it's shricha. You need it to totally besifta. It's hanging on its peg. It's not connected now. Do you say?" It's like the nechasim that are in it, that are of the tzaddikim, and there's an attacker going to get destroyed. So this also gets destroyed. Maybe since she generally puts it on and ties it on and goes out with it, but over here, even though she didn't, it's actually sitting on its stand right now. Still, it's considered like her clothing. And it won't get destroyed. Gemara says teiku. Gemara says we don't know the answer. The pasuk said all its shalal you should gather and put into the rechava of the city, like the town square, the road that goes through the town. In the rechav in asirin and dachas to Rabbi Shmuel says that pasuk that says rechava is giving a condition, right? You have to have a rechav, and if you don't have a rechav, it cannot be an irni dachas. In the rechav, if there's no rechav, you go get a bulldozer and make a rechav. You say, okay, now this is the rechav, and that's where we burn all the stuff. Michael Mifli, what's the shaila? Marsav rechav meikar mashma. Marsav rechav the hashkanami mashma. The shaila is when the pasuk says, does that mean specifically the rechav that was there before? You can't go make a new rechav now. Or rechav means it's rechav, however it came, whether it's there before, make it right now from scratch. Either way, so that's the shaila. What?
They weren't down yet the people yet. The people weren't ready down to Misa.
No, they were. They were. This is after they already saw. Okay, right of the people here did have the Zara.
Right. So now they have to do the Rechav.
Yeah.
So if the Rechav comes later on, Misa is here right now. So that's
good.
That's okay.
Okay. Second one on top. The hekdesh in the city. The Mishnah had said a few things. It said that it gets redeemed, and then the Bryce is going to say about a couple of different cases. Tana Rabbanan. Hoyba kadshim. The Bach and others take out the word kadshim. So hoyba kadshim. If they had kadshim in the city. Now, two types of kadshim. Kadshim is bayach. If there were kadshim is bayach, they're going to be karbanis. Yamusu. They die. Kadshim bedekabayis. If it's kadshim bedekabayis, yiftu they get redeemed. With truma, rekavut, let them rot. Ma'aser sheni v'kisvei kodesh, ma'aser sheni and kisvei kodesh yiganzu should get hidden. It's just like saying that they should be put away, similar to saying that they should rot. But
Ma'aser sheni also
Ma'aser sheni is talking about, actually, it might be talking about, we're going to talk about what it is.
So you redeemed it with money?
The money. It might be talking about the money of Ma'aser sheni, and that's why he probably says yiganzu. But
okay.
But the Gemara is going to talk about this. Let's see what it is.
Yeah,
that's not so much.
They're barked out about Ma'aser sheni. Yeah. Okay.
Right. And the Gemara is going to say this is not a pashta case. Reb Shimon Aimer, still in the Brayser, Reb Shimon says, "Behemta v'lei behemes bachar." Behemta, when the pasuk says that that's called behemta, where is it? That's behemta l'fi charav. Behemta is mashma v'lei behemes bachar meiser, not a behema that's a bachar meiser, the karbanis. Shlala, when it says that's called shlala tikbaitz, is prat l'kesav hakodesh v'kesav meiser, and it excludes kesav hakodesh and kesav meiser. And we're going to have to explain what Reb Shimon is talking about. Amar Mar, we learned before. Hayu ba kadshim. Kachim is beach musu. If it's kachim is beach, they get killed. Musu. Why do you kill them? So when you kill the behema, Rashi explains that it means you put it into a little room and you give it sa'irim until its stomach explodes, like we learned earlier that Bezdin Sam is done. This is not your achiyas. This is you actually physically kill it, not with a hatchet, but you put it in a little room and you feed it something that eventually its stomach will explode from.
Poison.
Yeah, well, barley it says. But similar, we had this case when something Bezdin is makim vention shleim and adin. That's what they do also.
So barley.
What? Yeah.
The barley expands.
Right. So, right. In fact, the Gemara of Amaya Musu, why do you go kill them? Yiru stavu. Let them, like you said, let them be redeemed until, let them graze pasture until they get a mum. The machrin that gets sold. And their money will become an adava. Right? So why don't you do that? And for the Gemara, Rabbi Yechanan, it's machlokes. Rabbi Yechanan zevach risham teva. Rabbi Yechanan says it's a pasuk in Mishlei. Zevach risham teva. The carbon of a rasha is a teva. It's abominable. It's an abomination. And therefore, even if the money you would do yiru stavu and then sell them and redeem the money, right? The Ransham doesn't want that money. It's a tayeva.
It's a gana.
You cannot bring it, and therefore you kill them. Rishlak shamar maman bailam hu. It's Rish Lakish says that it's
money. It's their money.
The reason why they get killed is because it belongs to the Bailam. Why? It's kachim that you're chayiv in the achrayis. Rab Shimon he the amar mam Bailam hu. It's going according to Das Yachid. Rab Shimon. Rab Shimon holds that it's the kachim that shechayiv b'achru yisan. The Gemara will explain later. I'm sorry.
It's called mam Bailam.
What?
No, he holds that it's called mum.
He calls it right. Rav Shimon says that that there's Aina. If you sell Kachim, it's Aina because it's considered yours. It's not considered Mizbech because you're Chayv B'Achrisan. So therefore, that's the Gemara in Bava Metzia and Hazav. So therefore, the Gabi Erni Dachas, it's considered a Mammon Bailim. And therefore, just like if it was Stama Behema that belongs to the Erni Dachas, you kill it. That was not Kodesh, right? It's kitten, right? You'd kill it. So too over here, you kill it. And therefore the money is Asr Ba'ana, and therefore you can't say Yurachi Estavu. And you don't go and destroy it with everything else, make a big pile in the middle of the city. You don't do that because the Kavod Shemayim, this was once a carbon, so you do it the way the Rashi said. You put it into the thingy and you kill it privately, quietly, and so on. But still, you have to kill it because it belongs to the Bailam. And if it belongs to the Bailam, it's just like his car and his other animals that get destroyed. In fact, the Gemara, you're telling me that this is Rab Shimon, the Tanakama is going according to Rab Shimon. You can't because the Sefer is Rab Shimon already. In fact, the Gemara, the Sefer Rab Shimon, Reish Lav Rab Shimon. They're asking Reish Lakish. You're telling me the Sefer is the Reish is Rab Shimon. You can't. The Sefer is already Rab Shimon. But it's mashma, the Reish is not Rab Shimon. Gemara says you're right. Reish Lakish will tell you another answer. Ella b'kachim kalim. We're talking it's kachim kalim. V'aliba Rabbi Yossi Aglili. According to Rabbi Yossi Aglili, Damar kachim kalim mammon bailim. He holds that kachim kalim, like a shlamim, will belong to the owner. It has a bailus in it, and since and since it's mam and bailim, therefore you cannot redeem it. You can't yirach yistavu. It gets destroyed just like everything else. In fact, the Gemara is mashma according to Reish Lakish. Have a kachi kachim ma yiftu kachi kachim. What's going to be with the kachi kachim? You're going to redeem them. That means you're going to yirach yistavu, and then you're going to redeem them. Right, once they get a mum, Adatani Sefer Kachi Bedek Habayis Yiftu. The Mishnah said,
what's called Kachi Kachim?
A Kachi Kachim is Oila.
But right now it's the guy said it's Oila.
Yeah.
I mean, he
was Magdasha. Yeah. It's Kachim. He was about to bring it to the base of Migdash, and then he got killed because he did have a Dizara. Bad time, right?
Yeah.
So the Gemara is going to say
personalities.
Yeah. The Gemara is going to say, the Gemara is asking over here, you're telling me that according to Reish Lakish, that the Reish is going according to Rabbi Yossi Aglili, that holds Kachim Kalmam and Bailim, and therefore you have to get rid of this because it belonged to the early Dachas person. But it's mashma, that Kachim, Rabbi Yossi Aglili doesn't hold that's Mam and Bailim. Everyone holds that's Kachim Guaya. So then that, Taka, you would have to go and Yiruachi Estavu, and then Yiftu, right? Because you cannot go and kill it because this is what the pasuk says. Shlala. It's not the shalal of the person. It belongs to the Rabbani shalal. So you have to, but you're not going to go bring it because it's ever Hasham Te'eva. So you have to be Yiruach Yistavu and then Yiftu, right? And then bring that money for a carbon. That's what you should do. In fact, the Gemara, if that's the case, Adatani Sefer Kachi Bedek Habayis Yiftu, when the Sefer says Kachi Bedek Habayis should be redeemed, let's go and make Tanaf Kamina in the case itself of Kachim Kalim, of Kachim Mizbeach. And say like this, Kachim Kalim. When do you say that the Kachim Mizbeach will be a Musu by Kachim Kalim? Of Kachim Yiftu. It says on the side, there should be Yiru. Rashi is Yiru. They should be Yiru Achiestavu, and then you should redeem them. Right? The Gemara is asking, just to make clear the question, all the way in the beginning, the first line, the second line of the Brisa, the second line of the page, it says, Kachim Mizbeach Yamusu, Kachim B'Tekabayis Yiftu. That means you have to switch from two totally different types of kachim. One's kachim Mizbeach, one's kachim B'Tekabayis. And we know the halachas of the two are very different. You should make a finer diet. You say like this, Kachim Mizbeach Yamusu, Kachim Kalim, I'm sorry, Kachim Mizbeach, I said it wrong. Kachim Mizbeach, that's Kachim Kalim, you should be Yiftu. And Kachim is, I'm sorry, it's confusing. Kachim Mizbeach, that's Kachim Kalim Yamusu, because it's Mam and Bailim, according to Rabbi Yossi. And Kachim Mizbeach, that's Kachim, that should be Yiruach Yistavu. That's what it should have said. Make the nafkamina by Kachim Mizbeach itself, and you don't have to go to the farther case of Kachim Mizbeach, of Kachim Bedek Habayis. And for the Gemara, no, there's an exception to this. Kivan de eka chata shemeisu baleh l'l misa azla lepsiklei milsa. Since you have the halacha like this, chata shemeisu baleha, that goes lemisa. Therefore, lepsiklei, it didn't have this halacha to be straight through in all cases. What does that mean? kachi chatas is a kachi kachim, right? But even though it's kachi kachim, if you don't say over here that it should be the same as the other kachi kachim, because the chatas shemisa balea anyway goes to misa, right? So you can't say, oh, kachi kachim are yiru, because if the kachi kachim happens to be a chatas, since the it's mesu balea because the bailam was killed in the Irani Dachas, you can't treat it like the other kachim. So therefore, it couldn't say that nafkamina between kachim kachim and kachim kalim because there's one exception in the kachim kachim department. Zaktamar Vaiter. Bishlem Rabbi Yochanan Lemer Reish Lakish. I know why Rabbi Yochanan doesn't say like Reish Lakish because according to Reish Lakish, there are certain cases where you're going to bring the carbon. If it's kachi kachim, you won't bring the actual carbon, you'll redeem it, and then bring carbon for the money. The ksiv zevach rosham teeva. Rabbi Yochanan holds zevach rosham teeva. Even if you redeem it, you shouldn't have that money. You shouldn't bring it as a carbon. Elo Reish Lakish matam lemer Rabbi Yochanan. Why don't you say it was Reish Lakish not say like Rabbi Yochanan? Amalach, he's going to tell you ki amrin zevach rosham teeva hani mili hechad isnu beinayu. When do you say zevach rosham teeva? Only if the actual zevach, the actual animal is bad. Avlacha kiven deshtani yishtani. Since it was changed to be something else, now it's money, right? Because you redeemed it. That's not considered zevach rosham teeva. And if that's not considered zevach rosham teeva, I have to come up with a teretz that allows me to go and that I can't use zevach rosham teeva as a reason why you cannot go and use this. Excuse me, this money that you were paid already from the thing. Zaktamar Vaiter. Rav Shimon Aimer behemtach. It really says behemtach, but it says on the side it's behemtach. Pasuk says behemtach. So behemtach v'lei behemas b'chara meiser. This is quoting Rav Shimon from the Brisa on top of the Amud. But Ma'iskin, what's the case? Ileim betmimin shalosh shemayim. Let's say you have a b'chara meiser, they're tamim, right? The guy was separating his animals and said, "Oh, this is the 10th one, Vasiri Kodesh, and now it's going to be a carbon, right?" So and we're not going according to Rabbi Yisrael over here. This is Rab Shimon in the Sefer of the Mishnah, right? So he doesn't know Kachim Kalman Baal. So, Frak the Gemara, why are you telling me that not Behemoth B'chara Meiser? It's Shalosh Shamayim. It's already Shalosh Shamayim. That means you don't need this pasuk to tell it to you. You already have the pasuk Shlala. Rab Shimon is saying B'chara Meiser, you won't destroy, you won't kill like the other things. You already know this. It's Shalosh Shamayim. Ela b'bali mumin. So must be that it's a balmum. Balmum, you don't bring a b'chara meiser that's a balmum as a carbon. That's ma'am shlala. It's a regular part of the city. So, excuse me. So why are you not bringing it? Ravina Allah b'bali mumin. We are talking about bali mumin. Misha nachal b'teres behemta yatsu elu she'ena chal b'teres behemta. The pasuk is saying, Rab Shimon is saying, and when it says behemta, it means the things that you eat because it's your behema, but not the things that you eat because it's this you could eat. It's sort of connected. It's behemta plus it's b'chara meiser that had a mum, and that's shal shemayim, and therefore you cannot. Bring that as you cannot use the pasuk of shlala. You cannot use the pasuk of. Okay, really, this gets a little. We're going to come back to this tomorrow. Okay.